it's proven now that nature and contact with nature is healing.
Yeah.
It reduces crime, and people need it. And as we dissociate ourselves from the natural world, we're harming ourselves.
Yeah. So it's important to connect again.
It's very important to reconnect, and it doesn't have to be far away like Gombe. It can be, a city park if you find a peaceful place, or a botanical gardens, just somewhere where you can be surrounded by the energy of the green plants.
You seem to have like a natural connection with nature.
I was born loving animals, and when I talk about animals, I used to take worms to bed with me and study the snails. And I once hid for over 4 hours to see where an egg came out of a hen.
Because in our current system, we have a lot of problems on our planet. And some people think that it has to do with the thinking that our economy is like separate, or society is separate from nature. And that's the thinking that we can have infinite economic growth in a finite ecosystem. What do you think about those thoughts of separation?
It shouldn't be separated. We are and cannot separate ourselves from the natural world. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And as you say, this unlimited economic growth is not sustainable. It absolutely isn't sustainable. When we had the last recession, I really hope people would start thinking differently and realizing this can't go on forever. So let's change now. But no, let's bail out the banks and go back to business as usual. Now there's the crisis in different European countries.
Well, I talked to Paul Gilding a few weeks ago. He's the former director of Greenpeace International. And he said that because we have this thinking of separation, we're now heading to a crisis, a big crisis. What do you think about this vision?
I think we're actually in a crisis. I think we're in crisis mode, actually.
Yeah.
And, I go to many lectures by biologists who liken our planet to a big ship. And there's a lookout on the top. And he sees rocks ahead and he shouts out, danger, danger. And the captain, turns the wheel, and then he asks everyone to come and help him turn the wheel. But the momentum of the big ship is such that there's going to be a shipwreck. And that's what they're saying. Well, I think we've seen the rocks ahead, but they're quite far ahead. These days we have long-distance telescopes, or maybe we can Google it. And I think there's still time. But, and it's a big but, it means we have to start thinking differently. That's what Einstein said.
Yeah.
And, my hope is there's a growing understanding among young people that we're doing things wrong. There's a huge wave of people trying to live differently, trying to live in better harmony with nature, trying to understand the way forward. So that's the hope. But at the same time, the planet is still on a downward trajectory, nature is. So I feel this desperation to go on traveling and talking to more and more young people, because if we leave the meeting point too late, then there's no hope anymore.
Yeah.
It won't happen quickly. The world, as the poet said, won't die with a bang, but a whimper.
Because what keeps you on going? What is the thing that...
I look at the children that I'm meeting all the time, like the little boy who was just here, and I think how we've harmed the planet since I was that age, and I feel a kind of desperation. And if our young people lose hope, as many are, as you yourself said, then there is no hope, because when you lose hope, you fall into apathy. And I've met young people who are depressed about the future. They're angry, and most are just apathetic. Doesn't really matter what we do, there's no point anyway. And that's why I started Roots and Shoots, to provide hope. And if you think of the symbolism, you can look from where you're sitting at a big tree. Look at it, look at your big tree, and I'll look at my big tree. And these two big trees we're looking at started with little seeds. And when those seeds began to grow, little tiny white roots and a little tiny white shoot, pick it up with your thumb and finger, so small, so weak, And yet there's a magic, I call it magic, a power, a life force within that seed that's so strong that those little roots to reach the water can work through brick rocks and eventually push them aside. And that little shoot to reach the sunlight can work through cracks in a brick wall and eventually knock it down. So the rocks and the walls are all the problems we've inflicted on the planet, we humans, environmental and social. So it's hope. Hundreds and thousands of young people around the world can break through and can make this a better world for all living things. Well, what we have to do is to spend a few minutes every day thinking about the consequences of the choices we make, what we buy, where did it come from, how many miles has it had to travel, did it involve, bad practices. If you and me made these choices, just you and me, wouldn't make any difference. The world's too big. But when you get millions and then billions of people all thinking, how can I live today to most protect the planet and the future, then you begin to move towards change. And the young people that I'm dealing with now, my hope comes from everywhere I go. There are shining eyes of children of different ages, university students, young adults, people out in their first jobs, in prisons. Every individual makes a difference every day. You make an impact on the world and you have a choice as to what kind of impact you're going to make. We just have to get more people involved, and that's why I'm doing all this traveling.
To reach those billions.
Yes.
That's your goal.
It's to reach the billions, but you can help with your network.
Yeah.
Join us. We're trying to partner with all the people who think like we do to create this critical mass of young people who go out and will become the next business leaders, the next politicians, the next teachers, the next parents, the next lawyers, the next doctors, who think differently. The three interlinked problems: numbers of people, the poverty of millions, and if you're really poor, you do cut down the last trees because you're desperate to get food for yourself and your family, and the unsustainable lifestyle of us, which we have to reduce.
Yeah.
Those are the three seemingly insoluble problems that we have to solve.
Yeah.
We must solve them. And there are many people my age who would turn to you and say, you have to solve them. I don't say that. It's not your fault. You've inherited it. We have to work together.
Yeah.
And we have to bring back, the young, sort of seeking the wisdom of the elders, because we've lived a long time. We have to listen to the voices of the young, who seem to be coming up with all kinds of innovative and wonderful ideas. So again, going back to Roots and Shoots, it's empowering young people to take action themselves, to roll up their sleeves, to go out there. And so young people are being empowered, and we are listening to you. But we need each other.